I have this on. So thank you for joining us on International Women's Day to celebrate Kenosha's Women of Influence. So we have Frances Kavanagh, who is a professor emeritus from UW Parkside, founding member of the Kenosha Women's Network, and a 20-plus year member of the Susan B. Anthony Women of Influence Award Committee. Carly McNeil is the Kenosha County Deputy District Attorney and the 2022 Women of Influence Women to Watch Under 40 winner. And we have Jenny is the retired Chief of Staff for County Executive Jim Cruiser and the 2022 winner of the Women of Influence Business Government Nonprofit. So please join me in welcoming our speakers. Frances up first.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for stepping in at the last minute. Short people, you know. Okay, I'm a history person, okay? So it had to have begun with a gleam in someone's eye, but as is the case for much of women's history, no one remembers who. Although some think it was longtime AAUW member and branch president Patty Sowens. And probably it was also, as usual, a collaboration of a few women who wanted it to happen. But the idea took hold. Let's get several prominent county-wide women's organizations, Kenosha Women's Network and the American Association of University Women, the National Organization of Women, and Quota Club together to sponsor a women's dinner. And so it came to pass. The event took place on March 11th, 1985, almost 40 years ago during Women's History Month. It was at Casa Capri, and Frances Weaver, a columnist and author, who had returned to college at age 58 and become a motivational speaker for women in midlife, was the guest speaker. The cost was $10 per person. By the following year, March 10, 1986, the dinner was at the Holiday Inn in Kenosha, and the guest was Jerry Grebe, a folk singer from Green Bay. And then, in the natural order of things, it evolved. By 1987, the idea had become to honor a woman who had contributed to the community, an unsung hero. It was now called the Susan B. Anthony Dinner, and the first honoree was Sandra Sawney Yelton Stanley, a social worker and activist. In addition to KWN, AAUW, and NOW, the event was sponsored by BPW, Kenosha's Business and Professional Women. There were gaps between 1989-91 and 92-94, along with 2021. We remember that one, right? But otherwise, the event was off and running. You might wonder why it was named after Susan B. Anthony. It was an obvious choice. Anthony was the preeminent organizer and strategist of the 19th century agitation for women's enfranchisement. From 1851, when she met suffragist Elizabeth Cady Stanton, until the end of her life in 1906, Anthony worked full-time to build a political movement among women and direct it towards gaining equal rights. Persistence and intensity made her the symbol of political equality. She inspired suffragists to coalesce for several decades until a mature political organization could grow. Her Quaker background and education led her toward mobilizing public opinion behind abolition and temperance, as well as women's rights. Over time, the sponsoring organizations at Susan B. Anthony, the award dinner, changed. While AAUW and KWN remained throughout, the other representative nonprofits came and went, with local chapters of Business and Professional Women, Wisconsin Women Entrepreneurs, the National Organization for Women, Quota Club, the Mayor's Commission on Women's Issues, Women Working Together, and Tempo. Corporate sponsors included Bank One, Sienna Healthcare, Southport Bank, Chase Bank, Aurora Women's Health, Dental Associates, Ballesteri and Associates, RE/MAX, the Kenosha News, the Women's Fund, and the Labor Times. The organizing planning committee was of various sizes, sometimes as many as 14 representatives of the 3 or 4 sponsoring women's groups, sometimes as few as 8. But consistency was provided by longtime AAUW members like Mary Jonker and Lois Fulton, with 27 and 19 years respectively on the The venue changed as well, beginning with relatively small local restaurants like Casa Capri, the Station, and the Fireside, alternating with the Holiday Inn and Heritage House. It settled in 2003 at Parkway Chateau, that's the rod stop in case you don't remember, where it remained through 2016 when the event needed more space and moved to the Madrigano Marina Shores. This year it has moved again to an even larger space at UW Parkside's Arena. Attendance, which had been modest in the early years and in the hundreds during the early 90s, began to top 200 regularly in the 2000s and was over 300 after 2017. Over the years, a diverse array of guest speakers appeared to inspire and model women's achievements, from judges, including those on the state Supreme Court, entrepreneurs, educators, scientists, and politicians. During those years, the planning committee began to rethink the concept of the award and ceremony, which had begun as a means to honor a single woman who had contributed significantly to the community. Starting in 1994, the profits from the awards dinner were generally split evenly among 2 or 3 women's organizations, usually Women's and Children's Horizons, and 1 or 2 domestic violence, sexual assault nonprofits. In 2006, nonprofits were invited to submit grant proposals specifying projects and budgets to be funded in the following year, and the committee distributed the event's profits among those chosen. In order to honor non-traditional women returning to complete their higher education goals, in 2004, $2,000 was reserved from the profits to be given as scholarships to 2 women in the following year, with the pattern continuing through the present. And finally, in 2016, the committee decided to seek nominations of several women who had made substantial impact on Kenosha and its people, rather than just one. The Susan B. Anthony Award became the Lifetime Achievement Award, complemented by awards for Women to Watch Under 40, Arts and Education, and Business Nonprofit Government. The response has been gratifying, and the awardees have made and will continue to make lasting impact on the community. So what does the future hold for Kenosha's Susan B. Anthony Awards? Certainly, one would like to think that it will continue to fulfill its mission, honoring women who have in the past and will continue to contribute to the community and inspire others to do the same. But the event may not look the same, and the women honored may not look or behave like those who have come before them. Different times create different circumstances, and those who strive and achieve are answerable to their own times and places. Ultimately, as has often been said, we all stand on the shoulders of those who came before us.
All right, so for those of you who don't know me, I am Carly McNeil. I am the Deputy District Attorney here in Kenosha County. And I was honored last year at the Susan B. Anthony Awards as the Woman to Watch Under 40. I'm happy to report I'm still under 40 for a little bit longer. So last year's awards were wonderful. As we just heard, the awards have just attracted so many people. The first time I ever went, I saw just an enormous number of people at this event, and then I couldn't have been more surprised to hear that last year that I would be given the award. It was pretty crazy for me because I had to run to the ceremony, basically from court. So I was in court all week, and I couldn't leave work early because I was waiting for a jury verdict. So I had to run to the ceremony as soon as that happened. I had a few choice words for my boss, Mike Gravely. But again, I couldn't have been more thrilled by being given that award. And so I think it was quite timely, I guess, as an award for me because I quite literally became a woman to watch in the last few weeks when I prosecuted the Mark Johnson trial. So I ended up on the internet, much to my dismay, and so very literally became a woman to watch in the year after receiving that award. And so one of the things that I think about when I think about the Susan B. Anthony Awards is I think about sometimes there's people like myself, who become more front and center, like in the district attorney's office as prosecutors. We tend to be in the limelight a little bit more. But I also think about the women who have dedicated themselves so much without really ever being someone who will be nominated for an award. So for example, when I prosecuted the Mark Jensen case, again, I'm the person on the internet, I'm the person who's in the courtroom, but I think of all the women in my office who just dedicated their lives for months to make sure that that case could be prosecuted. And so one thing that I think is really important in terms of women's contributions, we see women all the time, perhaps drawn to or attracted to positions where they're not going to be front and center. So I think it is really important to acknowledge those women. And so again, when I think of myself and how I ended up where I am, including where I am right now, I think of all the women in the background who made me look good, right? Who did the work, just as much as I did to get me to where I am. And like was mentioned, we kind of stand on the shoulders of the giants who came before us, but we also stand on the shoulders of, the people who are never front and center and who don't receive the credit. And so that's just something that, I think many of you have probably experienced in your life. We're never just one thing. Sometimes we are the person working behind the scenes, and sometimes we're the person out front and center. And so that's something I think about when I think about these awards for women, and something I wanted to mention. So I don't know if anyone has any questions or anything, anything I could answer. Any questions about Mark Jensen? Thank you all.
I'm Jenny Tunkeys. I'm retired former Chief of Staff for County Executive Jim Cruiser. And I just want to point out, it's good that I'm right after Carly, because this is actually a Laura Cox original, and she was a woman to watch a few years ago. So I'll just... So, as both Fran and Carly had mentioned, is we all stand on the shoulders of those who have come before us. I was a newspaper reporter and editor for 21 years, and I feel so lucky that I had an opportunity to interview and meet and become friends with some tremendous women who've never received awards, but contributed so much to the Kenosha community, such as Irene Santos, who was the Spanish Center, really the heart and soul of the community, and had not ever been recognized for that, and she just passed away this past year, and I was really grateful to have an opportunity to get to know her. And it took much, much too long for Mrs. Mahone to receive an honor. Sadly, it was after she had passed, but what a tremendous individual she was, and I was so happy to get a chance to meet and know her. I don't know if anyone remembers Thelma Orr, who is really more strongly associated with Racine, but she was a powerhouse in the Kenosha community, and I'm as well, and she ran the Urban League for many, many years, and just was wonderful to meet and work with, and just her energy and passions. So, and then I just think about my own family. So I come from a long line of strong, outspoken women. It would have been my grandmother, Jenny Adela Woods. It would have been her 122nd birthday this week, the 6th. And, if you look up badass woman in the dictionary, my grandma's picture would have been there. She was a nurse anesthetist, and she just took no guff from anybody. That's why she moved around a lot and took different jobs, because she was always upset with the hospital system. She probably should have been in charge, and probably in today's world, my grandmother probably would have been running a hospital system because that's the kind of person she was. So, you know, just grateful for that. And my mother, smile at, you know, wouldn't meet a happier person, but boy, if you got on her wrong side, Mary would be quick to tell you what's what. So always got great advice from her. And, you know, it's, you know, I say to myself, isn't it ridiculous that we still have to take time out to honor women in particular, and yet it's because, you know, as many advances as we've had, there's so much more work that needs to be done. This really remains, I'm not telling anything to anybody here that you don't already know, but just there's so much misogyny, and you know, women still don't make an equal hourly wage to men worldwide. You know, there are still too few CEOs of companies. Debbie Ford, Chancellor Ford, who's receiving an award this year, still not, I mean, I think she told me 30% of all universities have a woman at the helm, and that's just far too few, and yet we haven't set up the systems really to support women yet, still today. You know, I think we all need wives is what we need, but you know, the Prime Minister of New Zealand resigned recently, probably because, you know, she's also changing diapers and making dinner. I mean, I don't, you know, I'm guessing, but but just there's so much more responsibility is expected from women, and it's too bad that we can't just have that equality in the workplace and the home place that makes everyone be able to have that support to achieve their greatest and highest callings and contributions to society. So thank you so much. It was just an honor to be chosen, and grateful to be involved in such a wonderful organization. Thanks.
Okay, so we're going to open it up for any questions. Does anyone have any questions at all? I have a few to ask for the winners. What was your initial reaction to the phone call saying that you won the award?
So my initial reaction, like I'm sure everyone else's, was surprise. Actually, Becky could answer this question too, because she was the person who called me. So it just came out of the total blue for me to hear this and to get this phone call. And of course, you know, I think, you know, we kind of think of the people who came before us, and so for me, you know, I thought also of my mother and my grandmother. And so another thing that I thought of is the amount of support that we get to get where we are, which is what, you know, I mentioned earlier. Because to me, it's always a surprise, right? You know, you're getting something, you're being recognized. And I think a lot of women feel that way. So that was my initial reaction to it, and now it just got in my head.
Just real quickly, I just assumed that they must have run out of nominees in that particular year.
And you won a pretty exclusive award. What has made you keep going to be that award-winning woman over time, both past and present?
Well, I have to pay the bills, so that's the number one reason. No, I mean, I think in terms of keeping going, you know, it is a little bit different to think that maybe people might recognize you or might have some eyes on you. And so one thing I think is more awareness, I guess, of being like a role model. And that's certainly true, you know, within the office that I work in. We have a lot of younger attorneys, new attorneys, and a lot of young women, you know, who work there. And, you know, I want them to feel welcomed in the attorney profession. And, you know, sometimes there's still concerns, you know, again, this is, you know, the world we
agree with that. I think it just motivates you to continue working toward honoring women, recognizing women, making sure that you're addressing issues when you have an opportunity, either in the workplace or in your own life or in the groups that you're associated with.
My last question is, did you have an aha moment about receiving your award?
Oh, that's a tough one. Well, for me, I had gone to the awards before, and I had seen, some of the award recipients. So I guess for me, it was to think, oh, somehow, I'm on the same list as these people. So I guess that was my aha moment. So yeah, I just want to give, I guess, a shout out to particularly Judge Mary Wagner, who was a prior award winner. She was always a role model to me when I first came to the district attorney's office. Her courtroom was one of the first courtrooms I appeared in. And, I thought about her and how she could not have been more welcoming to young attorneys. And so to me then, when I hear, hey, I won an award, one of these Susan B. Anthony Awards, I'm like, oh my goodness, my name is going to be by Judge Wagner's name. Like, that's amazing. So that was my aha moment.
Just really, it's similar to what we said before, is that it just reminds you that there's so much more work that needs to be done. It's great to be recognized, but I think that just spurs you on to try to work harder and more, and keep in mind of all the people who've not been recognized and should be, and all the future people. Make sure the systems are in place to keep supporting and honoring women.
That was my questions. I just want to thank everyone for joining us. If anyone else has any questions, open the floor. But thank you. And then the dinner is Friday, March 24th is the next award ceremony.